Anytime the headlines are dominated by one single story, it always makes you wonder what else is going on that news outlets aren't reporting on. Turns out, not a whole lot. Because apparently when most of the world's computer systems are down, there's not much bad actors can do. And of course, I'm referring to the CrowdStrike update that took down a ton of critical infrastructure for a beautiful, beautiful, peaceful day last Friday. And we're going to talk a little bit about the technical details from that faulty update at the end of the episode, referencing CrowdStrike's official technical documentation about what happened. But first, we're going to dive into the stunning arrest of a 17-year-old in the UK suspected of being linked to the notorious Scattered Spider hacking collective responsible for the 2023 MGM Resorts ransomware attack. And of course, cybercriminals are seizing on the CrowdStrike faulty update opportunity to distribute Remcos RAT malware. What precautions should you take to ensure that you're interacting with legitimate CrowdStrike representatives and not falling victim to these phishing schemes? You're listening to the Daily Decrypt. Police in the United Kingdom nabbed a teenager in Walsall, suspecting him of being part of the Scattered Spider hacking group, which is the group that claimed responsibility for the major attack in Las Vegas last year. Which means that at the time, this individual was only 16 years old. Which sounds absolutely crazy to be on the FBI's most wanted list at 16, but to be honest, that's not that uncommon when it comes to ransomware. And most groups nowadays seem to be state-sponsored in Russia or North Korea or China, but Scattered Spider's a little different. It's a group of younger individuals from England who hang out on Telegram and Discord, sharing tips and planning attacks. And their Western accents probably give them a pretty big advantage in social engineering tactics because they might be more up to date on slang or ways that Westerners communicate with each other. And while yes, they were involved in that major attack over the MGM Resorts in Las Vegas last year, they've also targeted companies like DoorDash, MailChimp, and Reddit. And with the wide availability of the internet nowadays, it makes it really hard to isolate exactly where these bad actors are operating from. And then once that's isolated, it is essentially an international investigation that requires collaboration across many different crime-fighting agencies. And the UK police say that this arrest is part of a broader investigation conducted by the National Crime Agency and the FBI into a hacking group known to breach networks, steal data, and deploy ransomware and extortion schemes. It sounds like MGM Resorts was also very helpful in this arrest, because in a statement released by MGM Resorts, they said, "We're proud to have assisted law enforcement in locating and arresting one of the alleged criminals responsible for the cyber attack against MGM Resorts and many others." So given that this is a larger scale investigation, we can expect more arrests to come. And if you're a 16-year-old out there listening to this, considering going into cybercrime, it may seem like a good idea, like a quick way to put your skills to use and get a ton of money, but very few people make it out without getting caught. And what's interesting is when you do get caught, not only does the FBI take away all the money you've made, they also slap you with a ton of fines so that you're actually holding on to less money than when you began as a 16-year-old. So take those skills and channel them into something important like defending against these attackers, because if you take that route, you will end up in the positives, I promise. All right, we all knew this was coming when we heard about the faulty update from CrowdStrike, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, it's important to know attackers will prey on any opportunity they get to deceive you into downloading their malware. And that's exactly what they did last Friday. So much of the world was in disarray, with IT professionals scrambling to find a solution to all of those blue screens of death. And anytime there's desperation, attackers are going to strike. So yes, they started distributing a malicious zip file named CrowdStrikeHotFix.zip, which promised to fix the blue screens of death. But instead, it loaded the Remcos RAT malware onto these systems. And now, I'm not sure about the technical details of this malware, but if you're loading it onto a computer that's broken, you're not going to get anything immediately. But I'm sure that this malware will persist once the computers are fixed. But this is a reminder to take precautions when dealing with customer support for any company, especially when you're in crisis. And there are a lot of deception techniques that can be used out there by attackers to get you to trust them and to make them seem legitimate. So these attackers were posing as CrowdStrike customer support, contacting you saying, hey, we've got this fix. Go here, download it. We're sorry this isn't in the more official way. We threw this together really quick. So it's a Dropbox. You just got to go download it and run it as soon as possible. This call that you received from CrowdStrike support might actually be from the number listed on CrowdStrike's website, the official number. Maybe you save that number in your phone as CrowdStrike support, which I highly recommend against because of this type of attack. Because, hey, it's the year 2024 and we can still spoof phone numbers. That's right. I could call you right now from a number associated with CrowdStrike. So what do you do in this situation? You're going to have to call that number yourself. You're going to have to receive that call, hang up, and call back and say, hey, I just got a call from this number telling me to download a package called CrowdStrikeHotFix.zip. Is this an official thing from a Dropbox account? They're going to say, absolutely not. There is no fix. And you're going to say, oh, okay, great. Let me know when there is a fix. So even in times, especially in times of desperation, you must be extremely careful. And on that note, we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about the CrowdStrike update that caused chaos around the world. No, this was not a cyber attack, but was largely much more effective than any cyber attack at eliminating the availability of your resources. So for this story, I'm just going to read straight from CrowdStrike, the official blog. So on July 19th, 2024, CrowdStrike released a sensor configuration update to Windows systems. Sensor configuration updates are an ongoing part of the protection mechanisms of the Falcon platform. This configuration update triggered a logic error, resulting in a system crash and blue screen of death on impacted systems. The sensor configuration update that caused the system crash was remediated less than 2 hours later. The configuration files mentioned are referred to as, quote, channel files, and are a part of the behavioral protection mechanisms used by the Falcon sensor. Updates to the channel files are a normal part of the sensor's operation and occur several times a day in response to novel tactics, techniques, and procedures discovered by CrowdStrike. This is not a new process. The architecture has been in place since Falcon's inception. So some of the technical details are that on Windows systems, channel files reside in the Windows System32 drivers CrowdStrike directory and have a file name that starts with C. Each channel is assigned a number as a unique identifier. The impacted channel file in this event is 291 and will have a file name that starts with C000000291 and ends with a .sys extension. Channel file 291 controls how Falcon evaluates named pipe execution on Windows systems, and named pipes are used for normal inter-process or inter-system communication in Windows. But side note from me is that they can be used for bad as well. They can actually be used to create backdoors into your system in a method known as living off the land, which is bad. The update that occurred was designed to target newly observed malicious named piping being used by common command and control frameworks and cyber attacks. The configuration update triggered a logic error that resulted in an operating system crash. And CrowdStrike is going to do a thorough investigation into how this happened and hopefully update some processes and procedures to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I love CrowdStrike's response to this. The CEO was on major news outlets all day, claiming responsibility and talking people through the process and making sure no one thought it was a cyber attack. Even though, I called into my doctor for a prescription and they were like, oh, our systems are down due to a cyber attack. Now, once they started, it's definitely possible that it was, but once they started describing the issues they were having, it was pretty apparent that it was the same issue. And it wasn't a cyber attack, but maybe that is easier to comprehend than, hey, our systems are down due to a third-party IT outage. But still, it's important to be honest with your customers and not call something a cyber attack when it's not a cyber attack. But yes, Friday was a historic day in IT history, and even though the worst is behind us in regards to this specific incident, there will be a lot of things that come out of this, good and bad, because it was destined to happen, and we really need to take a careful look at how we craft our infrastructure around these third-party software companies.
This has been the Daily Decrypt. If you found your key to unlocking the digital domain, show your support with a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It truly helps us stand at the frontier of cyber news. Don't forget to connect on Instagram or catch our episodes on YouTube. Until next time, keep your data safe and your curiosity alive.